And welcome out to a Wednesday edition of the Tackle Trading Halftime Report. As always, on a Wednesday, this is Coach Frank hanging out with the one, the only, the wise beyond his years, Coach Matt Justice, as we get ready to dial in a battle at the 20 in the overall market. Welcome out, Team Tackle. Hope you're doing well. If you're new here, great to have you. Always helpful to hit that sub button. If you like it, share it with a friend if you think it'll be helpful. You know, all of that fun YouTube stuff. And speaking of fun YouTube stuff, the new episode of Decoding Buffett launching today here on our YouTube channel. That's an awesome one. You're not going to want to miss that. And if you haven't had a chance just yet to catch the first quarter recap from the Trading Justice podcast that dropped on Monday, and I imagine some of you have, but maybe it's post-holiday week, definitely worth checking out. You can find that over on our YouTube channel or wherever you catch your podcast, but definitely worth checking that one out. Matty, my man, how we doing today, partner?
Doing good. Excited to be here with Crew to break down the market activity. Some interesting technical conversations, honestly, in the market right now, as well as thanks for the shout on the latest Decoding Buffett series. Definitely check that out. Just
Absolutely.
released on YouTube today. That video, and Coach Mark's doing an excellent job on the Decoding Buffett series. We got 4 videos that are done. We're going to release one each week, just trying to help our community, both at Tackle Trading and on YouTube, obviously, understand a little bit more of the fundamental side of the equation, the Warren Buffett value side, how he and not only how he sees things, but how, the people that influenced him. And, it's been awesome to create it with Coach Mark, but he is really the driving force behind it. He does a great job with it. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. And that second video, definitely like and share that to help with the visibility of that series as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great little series that Mark's got going on. And of course, that's a Mark series, right? If I ever heard one.
It really is. And we're starting to dial in the fifth video right now, and I just love how he's cooking. He's cooking with gasoline on this.
He's cooking.
And it's really good. It's really fun to watch, honestly.
Absolutely. When Mark's cooking on the stove that he loves, right? And he loves Buffett. Some people love Buffett. Some people just really like Buffett. Mark loves Buffett. So he's cooking on all cylinders. That's going to be a good one. And I love the first one. I imagine we'll love the second, the third, and as many as you want to throw at us, Mark. I'm sure we'll eat them all up, my friend.
I told Mark we'll stop when he's done. So I said it was going to be 8. It could be 12. I have no clue, but it is going to be 8 or 9. I do know that. So, but anyways, let's get this dialed in here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So you saw a little volatility, coming back from the holiday weekend. But here we are, small bar sitting on the 20. We talk about this a lot. That's an important level, right? It's just a level. It's not magic or anything like that, but we expect the 20 in whatever we're looking at to put up a fight, right? Folks are going to be looking at, robots are going to be looking at it. And no surprise, while we can't really declare a victor just yet, I don't think. No surprise that we're seeing buyers stepping back in off of this 20 period moving average. What are you seeing out there in the market and in the S&P in particular, Matty?
Yeah, I see a very similar thing, Frank. Yeah, I also think there's, and again, this is just a minor pivot type situation. It's not a major pivot, but it does have major implications to it if it does get violated. And so I want to be clear on the sense that a short-term violation of the 20-day moving average would at a minimum dirty up the technical read.
Yes.
And what it could start is us getting into retracement language. And that just has not been the S&P 500 this year. It just has not been part of the conversation. There's been flags, there's been shallow tests, but we really have not had any degree of corrective retracement conversation in the S&P 500. And you do have a little bit of concern that the market, broke out, which is not the concern because the market broke out and kind of just hovers. That's kind of the pattern, basically. Yeah. Breakout, hover. And so this isn't too abnormal in comparison to this over here. But again, you had some tests against that 20 period moving average. This is the bull zone is what it is. And a bull zone is when you have a bullish uptrend in the market, either through some degree of time consolidation, but oftentimes a pullback once you get in between two rising moving averages. And in a short-term trend, you're going to be looking at the 9 and the 20. In an intermediate trend, you're going to be looking at the 20 and the 50. And in a primary trend, you're going to be looking at these conditions more on longer term time frames. But when you're looking at the bull zone, it's just one of those situations where it typically is a buyer zone. It has a probability edge to the buyer zone, which means the buyers and the bulls still have the edge against the overall trend and the overall control of the price action in general. But it's also in the back of your mind, you do have a little bit of concern given the fact that if this pattern does break, then you have a violation of trend analysis. And when you have a violation of trend analysis, you kind of sit on your hands a little bit waiting for better price action, quite frankly, as a short-term trader. And as a longer term, you wait on, you know, that deeper corrective retracement. And so when you're looking at the 20 period moving average right here, if you do violate, I want to talk very quickly just about the levels underneath that you could kind of anchor against in retracement analysis, even though the most likely scenario is we hold, right? But I wouldn't give it like a 70% likelihood right now. You got a doji right in between. I mean, put that as indecision as you can get right now. But if you do violate, you got to come out to a little bit of a longer time frame here to really understand where those corrective retracements could start coming into. When you are looking at the weekly chart, first and foremost, any corrective retracement will be talked about on the weekly chart because of the strength and the momentum of the overall weekly trend. And so underneath the current price, you do have a short journey down to the 9 EMA, which has not been tested in this weekly saga of just absolutely annihilation in the first quarter of 2024. And so you do have an eye on that 9 EMA, which is not too nasty. You wouldn't be too concerned over a short-term retracement coming into the 9 EMA as a bull. If the 9 EMA doesn't hold, you're going to be talking about a little bit deeper because of the strength of the trend. It's created a little bit of significant pockets on your longer duration moving averages. So you're really anchoring against that 9 EMA in any corrective retracement analysis. And if that does not hold, you could be looking at the first 5 to 10% correction that we've seen in the market in quite some time. And so you do have a little bit of concern right now, quite frankly. It's going to be important to see this really get worked out from an overall market perspective. The problem with the market on the bull side of the equation, just looking at broad-based S&P 500, is even if you do confirm, look at all the chop here, Frankie.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of chop there. And so you're probably talking about a little bit of short-term consolidation within the broad market of the S&P 500, which means you're really having a sector conversation more than anything right now.
Yeah, I mean that is absolutely spot on. It's always interesting when you are kind of seeing these battles develop. When you've been in a trend like this, there's just a million things, right? There's the 20, but you're a stone throw away from 9 weekly, which then you're stone throw away from the 50 daily, and then a stone throw away to the 9 monthly. So there's a lot of potential support catalysts if you get a little pullback. That's why these are tough charts to try to be bearish on when they do that, because they have relatively tight windows outside of anything intraday. But I do think that's a good call out on the sectors, because when you're looking at the sectors, whether it's energy, I mean, we all know that story, right? I think is an absolute beast. But XLC, there's certainly sectors out there that are still showing very, very well technically, right? Haven't had these little chinks in the armor. That's all it is, right? I don't want to make it out to be bigger than it appears to be here today. But it's definitely going to be an interesting battle. And you know what? Just like I said last quarter, Maddie, if you want to go sideways throughout the month of earnings, you got my blessing, market. It's earnings again. Kevin messaged me a couple times in Discord. I'm starting to see a lot of those ugly E's or blue bells on my charts, and he's right. Oh no, don't do it.
Oh wait, yep.
Yeah, next week, right? Friday, next Friday. No. You it's too soon.
There it is, right there. Right there's the kickstart. April 12th.
Yep. So basically next week, right? Can't believe it's already here. Seems like we just got done with earnings season, but It is. It is here. If you ever want to be, take some time off, earnings season is not a bad time to do it. And I'm talking to you, market. If you just want to go sideways throughout earnings, at least broadly speaking, you have my blessing to do so. I do appreciate that deep dial in on the S&P whenever you're at these, these important levels and, kind of testing trends and stuff. These are important conversations to have, right? How do we want to
They are in the
react?
broad market. They are in the broad market, but once again, I see this market as a sector market, and I see this as a commodity-driven market right now. Commodities
Oh,
have just
yes.
been absolutely on fire. And at Tackle Trading, we anchor against commodity analysis.
Oh, we are never unhappy when you're seeing energy, oil,
Yeah.
gold. When we're seeing, copper, those commodities moving, we're usually pretty happy campers. Well, speaking of the commodities, Maddie, let's take a look at some of these things on fire. The dollar was kind of an interesting one because it tried to break, right? And right now, it's looking like maybe it's tried to fake. I know that's what some of us might be cheering for, from a trading perspective, at least. Definitely selling off resistance hasn't really broken trend, but did give up the 9, right? That is the first time that we've given up the 9 for a minute. That definitely helps, out on that gold chart in particular, right? Which has just been monstrous, to say the least.
And especially because gold's been so impressive in the face of what the dollar's been doing in the last 3 weeks or so. Think about this from a commodity perspective, just in general, before I say what I'm going to say on the dollar here. When you look at gold here, just the bastion of beauty, right? Just a really good trend, momentum, hasn't done anything wrong. Obviously it's not, my stance has changed on this parabolic uptrend within gold.
Okay.
And
Interested.
and the reason being is I see this as a fundamental move more than an algorithm technical move. And so in days gone by, a lot of times the gold would kind of get a little bit out in front of itself. And I do think you can make that argument a little bit right now within the gold areas of the market. But I'm very impressed with gold in the sense that it's running in the face of the dollar move.
Yeah.
And that doesn't tell me, oh, this is just an algorithm pump here, because the algorithm it would pump up gold and would pump up the dollar and sell gold. That's what the algorithm, that they're very divergent against one another historically. But we're having a different conversation over the last 2 months from an inflationary perspective. We're having a conversation over a double dip inflationary situation that reminds many people, including myself, of the 1970s. It's specifically 1976 to 1977, where the central bank made mistakes in basically, not stomping on the gas pedal in their fight against inflation. They loosened up the purse strings a little bit, allowed inflation to creep in, double dip inflation set in, and it really, rocked the market for another 5 to 6 years, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And in those environments, you had to have people like Volcker come in and, bring the big stick, so to speak, to raise interest rates quite aggressively to knock down that inflation. But in those environments of hypothetical double dip inflation, you're not going to find an area where gold produced better results than they did in the double dip inflationary mentality. And whether or not the Fed can get the reins, back around inflation right now or not, that's going to be an open question for the future. Jay Powell gave a speech earlier this morning, just about 30 minutes ago, where we got the notes, and he suggested that it's not appropriate to lower policy rate without more confidence inflation's coming down. It's the right thing to say. We'll see if their actions follow their words. I have a lot of doubt that their actions are going to follow their words here, but it is the right thing to say. Bostic, a Fed member, the Atlanta voting member, Bostic, says he only sees one rate cut this year. And it's like, okay. But then you have the owner of the Mets today, and just think about it like this. The owner of the Mets, Steve Cohen, today gave a really interesting interview on CNBC where he was talking about the AI revolution and the efficiency argument of AI. He thinks there's still a tremendous amount of room to run on AI. So do I. In terms of inflation, he made a statement. He says it's going to be difficult to get inflation back down to 2%. And if people like Steve Cohen are seeing that same thing that people like you and myself are seeing. It's across the board. It's not just the gold bugs out there and the inflationary hawks out there and the central bank nerds out there. It's not just that movement that is happening here. Again, Steve Cohen is about as Wall Street as you get, and he's out there saying that inflation is going to be very difficult to get back down to the Fed's target of 2%. And so you got this double dip inflationary situation happening right now, and you got commodities that are just basically saying we have to run higher given the double dip inflation in the face of the dollar. And so you got gold running here. Silver is doing absolutely lights out right now.
Monster.
Just an absolute monster. It's tough to catch, obviously. Train's left the station a little bit here, but it's running really hot. Put that on any high base correction, flag base. You got copper here. Copper's running hot. Copper and silver are running a little bit hotter in recent price action than even gold is. And that's a little bit not the inflationary argument. That's a little bit of the improving global economy argument plus the double dip inflationary argument. And so when you got that two-pronged improving global economics, China slight bump up in economic projections, copper's going to run, silver's going to run. And so you have copper, silver running. Both of them, I think, is up when you're looking at, let me get their price performance very quickly. Let me go to FinViz. So let's go to the futures here. So when you're looking at the performance here, silver, and this is just today, silver up 4%, coffee up 3%, copper up 2%, palladium, gold, up pretty decent. But when you go to the last week here, silver up 9%, natural gas coming from the low point up 8% in the last week. That could be another, if natural gas breaks out at $2, energy is going to get another leg here. Heating oil up 5% in the last week, copper up 5% in the last week, gold up 5% in the last week. You're really starting to see commodities take momentum. And when you're looking at that double dip inflation, Powell's got to be screaming at these charts right now because they are not going to help his argument out in any capacity. But copper's running, gold's running, silver's running. Now, when you come down to natural gas, right? The natural gas, the one coming from the extremely low tier here, Frankie, but you're coming from that 1.6, and now you're starting to pump up against that 50-period moving average on the daily chart. What's the 50-period moving average on the daily chart represent? The ultimate confirmation of a reversal is what that represents on the daily chart. When you look at and now personally, I would put that at $2 because I got the range of the reversal here from 1.6 to $2. But that would be a really good step in the right direction. You come out to the weekly chart here, Frankie, that's getting downright reversal there. Just a lot of slowing momentum. And so even though you haven't really seen that breakout and run in natural gas yet, you still have a little bit. And if China wants to come on even more and start stimulating their economy more, that's just going to open up this conversation on natural gas that much more. So the market's taking a little bit of a breather, but commodities are not. Commodities are taking the charge here. And specifically when you're talking about crude oil, the one commodity we have yet to talk about here, and I'll stop talking and go wherever you want to go.
I love it, man. No, you go, you do you, bud. I'm good with it.
Looking at crude oil here, we said this in the podcast in the first quarter recap on Monday morning, but it just feels like this is a 90 conversation. And the Iranian-Israeli situation that's kind of expanding right now over the last 24, 48 hours. That's obviously concerning. You got Ukraine that is targeting Russian energy fields. That's got to be a little bit concerning when you're talking about the crude oil chart. Concerning meaning for inflation in there, not for our purposes because that sends it higher. It just feels like there's a magnet up there around 90 and we're just going through a continuation. What you have seen in the last 3 days is a little bit of momentum start taking hold here in crude oil as you see that start to separate from the 9 EMA as it starts to journey up into that 90 handle. And so, it's the market seems to be going through a little bit of consolidation, but the commodity areas of the market seem to be firing off on all cylinders.
Yeah,
right now.
they're rocking and rolling, and that's the fun part, and that's why it's always important to look beyond just the S&P, right? That's always driven me crazy. That's what gets the big headlines. It's not that it's not important, it's just that it usually can't tell the whole story with the way that it's built. Love the dial in.
It rarely does. It gives us a barometer of overall market activity, and within that market activity, you have a lot of different components, obviously.
Yes, absolutely.
And to me, this is going to continue to be a sector conversation. First and foremost, I think the best people this year producing in the market will be laser focused on sector rotation models.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, and that's generally, to some degree or another, generally the case, right?
That's bullish conditions 101.
Yep, that's exactly the case. Well, I appreciate the deep dial in there on the commodities. Loved it, man. I didn't want to get in your way. You were cooking like Mark cooking on Buffett, so I was just going to let you do your thing. That'll do it though for the Skyline. Now, Maddie, I know earnings are coming up, so I hope you don't have any earnings for me yet. I'm not ready. I need one more week, bro.
I'm not there yet, bro. Like even there was like PVH reported yesterday, and I was like, no, it's too close. I'm not doing PVH. If it was Walmart, I would have done it, right?
Sure,
if it was a more important stock, I would have done
big name. You have no choice, right?
Like, but no, I got a week before I am literally living.
Then that's where you live. That is where you live. There is some interesting stock news out there though today to get to. So where you want to start on that front?
I want to get your take on Bitcoin.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm a blasphemer.
Yeah, you can go to church, brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
I need you to repent. Yesterday I said, I just want to see if you agree or disagree here. Yesterday I said, for me right now, this is either a breakout trade or waiting patiently on something deeper to park.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. When something has rocked above the 9 or below, that works both ways. But when something's lived, that 9 lifestyle for an extended period of time, when it finally gives out, it can get messy. It doesn't mean it has to be like the end of the road and it's tanking or that's the ultimate reversal. It's just things have changed, and when change happens, a lot of times it can get messy. I'm not surprised at all that you're seeing the overall messiness of Bitcoin having that back. I mean, what we're above at some 40-ish days above the 9 EMA. It just takes a little while to something new you nailed it. Something new has to develop because the momentum condition is gone. And whether it's a deeper retracement, a consolidation, time will determine that for us, right? All we can do is monitor until we get it.
Right now, one way or the other, which way it wants to go in the immediate short term. Like if you were to tell me, Matt, gun to head, which way does it go tomorrow? Somebody tell me what to pick. I don't know. Right. It's one of those situations where you just anything, you're not surprised by anything tomorrow with Bitcoin. You're not surprised by big up day, big down day. I think the only thing you would be surprised about if we get a doji, but even then, I think I can point out one doji in the last month.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be crazy.
I think the only thing that would surprise me is if we just kind of consolidate here, but no, I don't have a good read on it. And when I don't have a good read on it, I'm not going to force the read.
No, when the read's not there, there's no shame in saying I just got to clean up, right? Whatever that means and however long that takes, there's no shame in saying that. That's a lesson we all have to learn.
I don't know about you, but when I don't have a clear read on something, I just walk away from it until
it just might as well not exist, right? Yeah, 100%. There's too many charts, right? We have a million things. Well, maybe not a million, but we have more things than we can handle from a trading perspective. They don't have to sacrifice what I want out of a chart. Maybe this is what somebody wants out of a chart, and that's fine if that's the case. But yeah, you have options. If it doesn't stand out, I always say it sells you, not the other way around, right?
True. That's a good way to think about
this chart.
That's a good way to think about it. They're trying to get your money, not the other way around.
Exactly. However, I do apologize for forgetting you Bitcoin, and I will spend a little extra time in church this weekend. as repentance. So
I felt
that
Mary's on that one, brother.
there you go. Well, that now will do the market skyline. But let's get to stocks in the news. There's some names and some stories out there that are a little interesting, at least.
I think the most interesting stock story today is Disney.
Oh yeah, this is an interesting one.
The proxy battle and the proxy vote is happening here. I don't think, much like many Disney movies of recent history, we're not going to be left shocked and awed on this one, given the fact that there was a press release late last night indicating that Disney was going to win the proxy battle. That's interesting that information got out. If Disney was not going to win the proxy battle, I promise you we would have not have heard that information. But it does look like Disney and Bob Iger is going to win the proxy battle. And you know what's amazing to me is this proxy battle has been going on for right around 6 months. Is what this proxy battle's been going on. And I've been reading a lot today now that it's kind of come to a conclusion. Who's responsible for the turnaround story in Disney? Is it Nelson Peltz, who forced Iger to adopt a more aggressive strategic strategy, or was Bob Iger already doing that and Nelson Peltz just jumped on the bandwagon of that to spark a little bit of fire? I find that to be a fascinating and interesting debate, and I don't think it matters one iota to what the stock price does from here on out. But I do find it to be a fascinating debate. I also find it to be fascinating on Disney that we are seeing the last 2 quarters turn around on Disney, where Disney needs to figure out a way to monetize ESPN a little bit better. But in terms of their overall turnaround story here, you know, Bob Iger is one of those names in corporate America that I trust. I've always felt that Bob Iger can turn this around, but he's got a very, very tall task in front of him. And he still does have a very, very tall task in front of him. But as they do improve, it does seem like the price is starting to reflect that. And you just got a really good turnaround story. And I do think it's a more compelling technical story than it is a fundamental story, because you can parse the fundamentals how you want on Disney, quite frankly. And a lot of times there's a lot of bias on this company right now from a political perspective. So I do see it more as a compelling technical story than it is a fundamental one. And from a technical one here, Frank, what's your thoughts technically here?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a ton of momentum, right? And you're stalling right there at that last level, right? That last little pivot zone. This is, that mid-tier reversal type situation, right? Not maybe as crystal textbook clear as you would like it, but they're not always that case. So this falls right into that mid-tier breakout, which means there's room to go, right? Whether it can get back up to the highs or not, that's really, from a trading point of view, that's who cares, right? Can it get up another 10 points? Can it get up another 15 points? If we can break out of this, I think technically, yeah, you could make that case pretty easily.
Yeah, I think you can too. And the mid-tier breakout, I think you got a couple of them here, honestly, because Disney had, let's face it, it got smoked.
Yes,
it was absolutely smoked. It's not like we got a really clean low tier, mid tier, top tier we can work off of with a 52-week low to a 52-week high type situation. You know what I mean? This thing got absolutely just steamrolled to the downside for a very long time. So mid-tier breakout, I would put one at 110. I would put one kind of right here at around 124, 125, right around that level. The technical story on Disney is going to be an interesting one, because I kind of feel it's going to be one where we talk about patterns about every 10 points up. And what I mean by that is that's kind of what Disney does. Even in this downward movement in price, it kind of went down 10 points up, down 10 more points up.
They're like ETN. Right? They work the 10s, right?
Right. In some stocks, we call it walking up the stairs or walking up the ladder. It just kind of feels like Disney's in that walking up the stairs moment. And so I think you can really kind of anchor against 125 here. I also think you can anchor against 130 if we get a high base there, but it's a compelling, it is a compelling technical story. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's nice to have them back on the list, because while they were selling, there were bearish opportunities, right? But there's also a lot of grindy down price action. At least that's how I felt it. So it wasn't super fun to try to trade it. We've had some fun trading Disney in days gone by, so you can come back to the
I
table if
the longer term analysis on Disney usually position to
more
longer.
position. Yeah, it's a little. Yeah, it's yes. I would generally agree with that. I would
Uh,
generally agree with that.
but it does have a momentum trend with a momentum high base, which swing traders do like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So it does have a compelling condition. By the way, Team Tackle, if you have a stock you want Frank to break down when we get done with stocks in the news, go ahead and put that symbol there in the in YouTube chat. Make sure you put the symbol so I can make my job really, really easy.
Love it.
But
You know, I
if you have
like
a
to look
stock
at
you want us to
charts.
break down, or a commodity, or anything you want us to break down, put the symbol specifically in YouTube, and we'll definitely get to it at the end of the show here, Frankie. The next stock in the news here today is Tesla again, as Tesla's in the news quite a bit. Guggenheim and Deutsche Bank are out on Tesla following the first quarter deliveries that are reported on yesterday in Tesla. And so Guggenheim and Deutsche Bank both basically jump on the first quarter delivery miss, and they lower their price targets on Tesla. I think it's a difficult one, but if it ain't 160, my price target would be 100, because
I
that's
mean, you are
about
kind
what
of
the
that's
range you got there from a
yeah,
technical
that's the
perspective.
range. Yeah.
So if you lowered your price target down to 130, and I don't know exactly what Guggenheim's price target, I bet you it's still on top of the current price, and I'll bet you Deutsche Bank's is still on top of the current price. But there's just not a lot here,
No, there's just
right?
nothing.
I
Yeah.
mean, you got 160, and then you got nothing but a wick here, which you're not going to anchor against. You got nothing but a one data point wick underneath that. So underneath 160, there's nothing to 100.
There's just nothing to 100. There's just
Not,
nothing.
like, you could go back in time and we can find and all that, but there's legitimately nothing to 100 here in the short term. So I kind of feel like if you're going to lower your price target underneath 160, it's got to be 100, because there's
Yeah.
just nothing really there. I like reversal analysis playing out here. I know Tesla's going through some negative news. You don't get opportunities in quality companies without negative news to push down their price a little bit. Let's see if we can get that traditional reversal to play out here between 160 and 180. That's kind of where I'm anchoring. You got a pivot point right north of 180, about 182. I would categorize that an intermediate pivot. You got the 50 period moving average that is screaming at 184, should converge down to 180. So again, this is an if A then B scenario, but I'd like to put things on the radar. And if you do hold here, you got a double bottom at 160. If you do work back up into 180, you got a W formation. And if that time takes a little bit of time, that 50 period moving average will converge against the breakout channel. And that is going to be a really clean look on a reversal on Tesla. And you do not get very many really clean looks on a reversal on Tesla. So negative news pushing the price down. Let's and again, fundamentally, Tesla's got some work to do. There's no doubt about that. I find it to be more of a space issue, and maybe Elon not being laser focused on Tesla right now. But at the end of the day, I do believe Elon's going to figure it out. Same way usually Elon does figure it out.
Yeah, usually does. Hey, you know what's nice, Maddie, is realistically speaking, we should get through the earnings for the time that we would want for that development. We'll get through their earnings.
2.5 weeks.
It's so they're relatively early in that, and we'd be looking at probably 2.5 weeks, ideally, to kind of dial all of this in if we are going to hold the 160. So could be an interesting post-earnings story. Well, probably will be. It's Tesla, right? It's usually interesting, at least for a minute.
I think it's always an interesting, yes, it's a catalyst stock early in earnings season, right there with Taiwan Semiconductor and Netflix. So it's one of those stocks that sets the tone a little bit throughout earnings season. There's a couple other stocks, obviously JP Morgan early on. You got but I would say from a growth perspective, once you get into Tesla, Netflix, Taiwan Semiconductor week, that's when growth really starts to kickstart the earnings conversation. Growth really doesn't care that much about financial regional bank week.
No,
which is the
no.
traditional kickstart to earnings. Obviously, Delta and a couple other companies there too, but traditionally, the growth conversation is about a week and a half after the kickstart earnings.
Yeah, it's earnings. That's way too many times we had to say earnings today.
I know, but earnings offers opportunities. So there you go.
Yeah, I'll tell myself that it does.
It does. It does. If we're talking about a breakout on Tesla's earnings out of that pivot point, you're going to
Oh, if we could dial that in, and then yes, 100%. So part of it is tongue in cheek, right?
oh, yeah.
I'd still rather do without it, but
You
opportunities
don't
do
like being in
develop out of it.
front of earnings. You like the post earnings conversation.
Yes, the post earnings, you can
I
sign
do
me
as
up
well.
for that. That's you can sign me up for the post earnings conversation
I'm
anytime
not
you
a
want.
fan of the pre-earnings analysis. No, I don't like the week before an earnings announcement. No.
No, I like to complain. That's what I
Yes.
like to do when it comes to earnings season. So
Yes, we do have a tendency to complain during earnings season just a little bit here. Frankie, we got a downgrade in Wolf Speed, and I'm upset with Wells Fargo. I don't Wells Fargo downgrades Wolf Speed. I had this as a reversal candidate, and
yeah,
not happy with Wolf Speed right now. In general, here, this is one of the few semiconductors that is coming from a low point. Most semiconductors are all the way up here.
yeah.
This one's not. It's had a bad start to the year. It's went from 45 down to 25 throughout the first part of the year. You're going through a nice little I wouldn't call that a W formation, more about just short-term consolidation at the low point on the chart. But man, it's got a good trigger above that 30 handle. What's your thoughts? Even with the Wells Fargo, by the way, Wells Fargo is absolutely chasing a downgrade here. Thanks for your service, Wells Fargo.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we knew this was an aggressive one, right? Coming in off of the low lows, kind of the first chance that you got. I think you said it best. Let's dial back in if we clean up. Create hold the support zone, break 30 again. We'll probably be talking about it again. I would imagine, and who knows, depending on how long that takes. This past week we kind of had about a $3 window, right, into that 20 weekly. Depending on how long this takes, that could converge, which would be a good look. So I still am interested on a 30 breakout. Just don't think I have to worry about making any decisions on that in the super near future.
Yeah, I agree with that. It could be a compelling above 30 conversation when and if it ever does that there, Frankie. The last stock story of the day is Intel, which is down 4% on the day. Well, actually, excuse me, 7% on the day. As after they basically reported on operating loss that was much larger in their AI segment than what was previously expected. Could see some restating of earnings on this one. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But obviously, whenever you're talking about that conversation, it's a negative moment for the stock. What's your thoughts here on Intel?
Yeah, it's not a good look at all, right? You hate when those type of stories come up. It's still choppy and messy. There's plenty of other things out there. These guys have, I think I talked about a couple weeks ago, there's just a million different things on a million different levels, whether it's above or below you. That's still true, right? Just a little less true after today's downward movement in price. If I'm looking to trade something, I can't imagine why it's Intel right now.
No.
Technically, I don't think you have an edge. However you want to spin it, fundamentally, everybody's going to have their price, right? The 200 weekly is always going to be an intriguing zone when it comes to that longer term. You dial in there, maybe we can talk. But for the immediate future, it's been off my radar really since it's gapped down on earnings whenever a couple of months ago. I don't expect it getting back on anytime soon.
No, I'm with you on that. Just negative news story more than anything on Intel here, sending it down to around the 200-day moving average, which is usually a zone the investors will try to support. We'll see what happens around that zone, but as of right now, it's always tough to look at a stock from a bullish perspective if you're having a conversation on operating loss larger than expected and potential restating of certain earnings. It's always something you want to shy away from a little bit.
It's a stay away. I got one tidbit for you, Maddie, before we wrap up stocks in the news. GE finished their split. So a while back, they spun off GE Healthcare, right? Now they've spun off into GE Aerospace and to GEV, which is kind of their electrical product. So there's 3 GEs running around
So
out there.
We got healthcare, aerospace, and
then the electrical
the
product side of it.
right?
Yeah. So now you can take your pick of what kind of GE you want to play. That's been, I mean, GE Healthcare's been spun off for a minute now, but kind of got that aerospace and the electrical parts spun off now as well.
3 GEs that we can all break down and celebrate. There you go.
Always fun, right? Always fun.
I wonder if they all run on the same algo program.
There's a possibility that they do. There's a possibility that they do. GE Healthcare was not as strong as GE.
Is that GEHC?
GEHC. It was running strong, but it wasn't running as strong as just GE was. But overall, it was running very similar. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I've liked the GE Healthcare side of the equation on that split. Obviously, we'll kind of see where GEV takes us.
Yeah, sort of got that 90 EMA hanging out. I kind of like just being able to break down GE, the aerospace company.
I do like, yes, I do like it. It's not necessarily something useful today,
that kind of
right?
stands out to me a little bit. I'm just trying to think about them as a collective, and like you've never been able to break down GE just from an aerospace perspective.
Yeah, it's gonna be be interesting.
Will be interesting. Good call out on that one there, Frankie. That's all I got for stocks in the news today. Do you got anything?
I got one thing. You got to look at this. You don't see this very often, which is why I'm bringing it up. And it's Lam Research, LRCX. Now, as is pretty much the case with everything, earnings is going to be a factor. But look at it dialing in that 1,000 breakout. You don't see a lot of 1,000 breakouts. This has been a tremendously strong stock. I just found it was interesting because, well, it's $1,000 breakout. You like $100 breakouts, right? I do. I like $500 breakouts. I'm interested to see if we can dial this one in. So it's more of a radar pick, but anytime something's dialing in one of those big breakouts, obviously I think you're going to want to see a close, and earnings are probably going to get in the way to make me just more and more sad. But I thought that was a real intriguing look going into the next little bit.
Really good technical look. And the only thing I'll say is split 10 to 1 and I'll care.
I'll care more when you do that. Remember when Tesla had its $1,000 breakout, and I boldly said,
I remember that one really
boldly. It's going to 1,100.
That thing's great. That's great to like 2,500.
Went to like 18. Yeah. So
Lam Research, it's like the 9th one in the list.
It is, and the big part of that is its price, right? And thus your flexibility.
Big part of its price. That is true.
And thus the liquidity side of things.
If Research splits, maybe they get into that conversation with the other ones, though.
You could absolutely see it. And one other radar, Maddie, because I got to do this. Any day that I can bring up ETN is a day I'm going to bring up your friend ETN. These guys work the 10s. We've had them a lot. Most recently, we kind of had the 300 to 310 by 320. And now we're getting the 320 breakout. These guys have been working the 10s. Pretty good looking break, and might have a little time. There's definitely some interesting charts out there. I did a pretty detailed scan this morning to just because it was fun, right? I didn't do one last week because it was a short week, so I didn't do a midweek scan last week. So I was making up for lost time. Definitely some interesting setups out there, and in particular in some of the industrials.
ETN, this is such a fun stock. You and I love this stock. We love for a couple different reasons, but we do love the consistency of this trend. Nice breakout. This trend's going to end the same way all trends end, but you don't question the trend while it's in.
Don't know when, right?
While it's in its motion, you ride the wave and you ride the trend until it ends. This is a really good breakout and looks like a continuation saga for ETN here.
Absolutely does. Yeah. So like I said, anytime I can talk about our old pal Travis, I'm going to talk about our old pal Travis. So those are a couple of things that I thought stood out.
I got Majid.
All
I
right.
got Majid says, can we break down Starbucks? And once again, anybody that wants us to look at a stock, make sure to look at Matt. Travis again. It's always Travis.
It's always
We're a
Travis.
broken record on Travis. And for those of you who do not know what Travis means, that is how we call ETN, Eaton Corporation. If you want to know why, join us in the Delta Dogs. We'll tell you all those.
We'll tell you all the stories, right? Hang out in the Step channel. You'll find a few pictures of Travis out there. Starbucks is absolutely
break.
It's horrible, Majid. This
Break.
is really good development. Gino and I have talked about this one like several times in the previous weeks, and I always circle back to that pivot, that low that happened in October. Didn't seem like a big low, but that was a big turning point. And so if I felt then, and I feel now, that's got to get violated. Well, finally, we're knocking right on the door. And because it's taken a few weeks to do that, you're getting pressure from the short-term moving averages on the weekly chart, specifically the 9, has been smacking it down. Now it's smacking it down into that support level. There is legitimately not like where is support on this? I mean, there's price everywhere, but I mean, you're talking, Maddie, there's not really legitimate support. Maybe you could make a little bit of a case around 80. You definitely could make a case around 70. But I mean, that's a lot, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's going to fill all of that space, but when there's a big open window, you're going to be interested from a trading point of view. I've got this on my bear list, Majid, and I do like it from a risk to reward perspective.
Yeah, Majid, I'm going to go ahead and agree with Coach Frank here. Just a terrible violation at a very important price point, right there at the 90 handle. It's not just this pivot. You got a whole bunch of junk over here. You got a pivot point all the way back in 22. It's the 90 handle. We're always going to give the 90 handle a little bit more credibility than say an 85 or an 80 handle. You just see that play out in trading all the time. Certain numbers mean something a little bit more than others do, and 90 is one of those. So you look at the violation of support here. It's a multiple time frame violation with the breaking the intermediate trend as well as the short-term trend. Yeah, if you close underneath the levels here, there's just nothing that you see here. And honestly, I look at this from a technical perspective, but I'm thinking just from a fundamental perspective as well. And just let me confirm some numbers very quickly, Majid, if you don't mind. But I'm kind of getting out a little bit on Starbucks, McDonald's. Like I'm just getting a little sick and tired of them, quite frankly, jacking up prices and lowering quality. You got other options out there than Starbucks, you need to do a better job. So I got a little take there too. So I like this technically. It's a technical break to me. I'm right there with you. I agree with you. And I agree with Coach Frank. I think this is a shorting opportunity.
Yeah, it's an ugly bear. And I'm with you on I've never been on Starbucks. I've always wondered why people went to Starbucks, to each their own, but I never got it. I
went there the other day to pick up just a tea and some things. And I feel a little dirty. Like I was like, what am I doing in this Starbucks line?
I think I've had Starbucks like once in my life.
What am I doing? Like, so I went to a local Fairway coffee shop the next day, and I was like, oh man, this is so much better. This is so much better.
Just feels right. So I always just
I was talking about both the experience and the coffee.
Oh, yes. There you go.
Yeah.
See, I just
cheaper. It was like $2 cheaper. Yeah, like So I'm with you, Frankie. Last question on Starbucks here. It's an option one for me, but confirmation underneath the low of today.
I think you let it close below the low from the third. So that is 89.21. So if you can get that combination, so that would be a close below today, that would work. So yeah, I think you could call that confirmation. Yeah, I do believe so.
I think you already have an aggressive confirmation underneath 90. Right.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about ultimate confirmation. I think what we're looking at.
89. Right. Yeah. And I like the option play, probably a debit spread call out for me personally.
Majid, that is a great.
Yeah. Good looking out, Majid. Nice, nice chart.
We got a couple others here. Let's go with the Sox.
Ooh, going with the
Duncan,
stocks.
like Duncan, I'll take Duncan. We don't get a lot of Duncan out here though, Reno.
No, I
Um,
don't do the. I'm good.
what
It's
would
a
what would it take for you? Because we've kind of left the semiconductors in the immediate short term. Has kind of left our radar, right? We're
yeah.
talking far more industrial energy, basic materials these days to tackle than anything else. Semiconductors were all the rave for a while. They will be a very
It will
important
be
part of the
again.
conversation in the future as well. But
Absolutely.
in the immediate short term, I don't think there's been a lot of desire to fight the top end volatilities of these trends.
Exactly. It's a mini version of Bitcoin, right? In the sense that it had that tremendous momentum. That momentum is shifted. It hasn't really shifted the trend overall, but it shifted the momentum. And when that happens, it gets messy. I would say that this is still a interesting area for bullish cash flow personally, but directionally, if it just wants to
Yeah,
run,
we've
I'll
got like
probably
bull puts on Nvidia and
Nvidia,
other
yeah,
tech
yeah, and that's kind of
plays.
I don't think that has changed for me just yet. And if it wants to run, there are certain names like Marvell is one, and of course the aforementioned LRCX. There are things that if it wants to run, I think are intriguing or maybe more intriguing than other things. Maybe Taiwan Semiconductor you could probably put in there as well. But I think for the most part, from my point of view at least, it's kind of lost that momentum. It's lost the magic, not necessarily being bad, but it's not being good, which kind of leads me to kind of like you, right? We just kind of, I don't want to say forget about it, right? But we do kind of put it on the back burner. And I don't think it's done
Well,
enough for me to take it and put it on the front burner just yet.
not yet, not yet. And the reason for me is it's not like this space is doing the same thing right now. Yeah, you're looking at the SOX, which looks pretty good above 230, for example, technically, and you're thinking, well, if you're going to do that, you just might as well just play Nvidia because that's what the SOX are basically looking like.
Yeah.
Whereas when you look at all the other components that
Yeah. We
make
looked
up
at
the
Intel,
SOX,
yuck.
there's a vast different discussion here. You go to the other leaderships here, AMD, like yeah, I'm interested here in AMD with proper development, but that proper development would take a little bit of time here.
Yeah.
Micron has been a juggernaut following earnings, an absolute juggernaut following earnings, but it hasn't settled really in necessarily to give anybody a short-term trading edge, in my estimation, other than just bar by bar momentum, everything is
Yeah.
rosy type analysis.
Yeah. And that's just,
You go to, we talked about Intel today, obviously part of SOX, having a negative news day here today. ARM, a big component of SOX now. It doesn't feel like it's ready for prime time in a short-term reversal analysis yet. Let's go down the list. In fact, I'll just pull up FinViz here and we'll look at them all a little bit here. Just kind of look at the space very quickly. Nvidia, it's got a double top, which means you're not looking at anything underneath, especially until we see a little bit more development. Taiwan Semiconductor,
it's a good look.
if it was not for earnings coming up really closely, I'd have a different take on
Yeah.
Taiwan.
It's a good look.
But that is a pretty decent king's bet
One of the
on
cleaner ones
Taiwan.
out there, I would say.
Broadcom, anybody better than me, find out how you can analyze that volatility on Broadcom.
Oh, thank you. Not
Like,
me.
I want no part of it. Zero, nothing. AMD, again, not terrible, but it would need a little bit of proper development. Qualcomm, not a bad look there on Qualcomm. Pretty
King's
decent
bet on
look
there.
on Qualcomm. Intel had negative news here today. Texas Instruments never
Yeah.
gets any conversation, so we're not going to have it here today. Or he talked about Micron and ARM. ADI, anybody here? Nope.
It's just
No.
gonna have to
No.
dial that in.
Marvel looks like a little bit of an opportunity there. Dial that in a little bit. That looks really, really good. You come down the list, microchip, nothing to see here on microchip. ON Semiconductor, that looks like a short underneath 70.
Yeah, that looks
Just terrible underneath 70, quite frankly. So it's like the space does not feel aligned.
it
And
doesn't.
it feels like it doesn't have a proper edge. I think you can, if you looked at any stock long enough, you looked at any space long enough, you could find your edge but is it really an edge? Or is it just what you found on one time frame on one stock without the proper context of the space? And so so just to, and I don't want to, dance on semiconductors grave here
Oh
today.
no, by no
That's not
means.
my
I mean,
intention at all.
if you made me buy, if you made me trade it, I
If
have
you
to.
if you
I'd,
gone
I'd
ahead,
leave the
it
bull.
would be a buy. Yes, it would be a market order buy. It's semiconductors long term. Yes, absolutely. We're talking short term analysis, but I just don't see it in the stocks yet. All I see right now, guys, in semiconductors in general is volatility. That's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
I see.
Chopping the
And
top.
until that changes, I find it difficult to project where the semiconductors would go.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, that's a great question, though.
Yeah, that was a
Dean.
good one. That was a good one because it really got you
Well, it's
thinking.
such an important conversation, right? Like
It is, yeah.
the
I mean,
semiconductors are the heartbeat of the AI movement, and the AI movement is just getting started. Like people who talk about the AI movement being, oh, it's all priced in or it's all just a fact. That's nonsense. That is
that seems
absolutely
off.
outlandish craziness. This thing is a 10-year saga. Even Steve Cohen today was talking about how the market is undervaluing the current AI conversation, let alone the AI conversation 10 years from now. And so, no, I don't want to say like this is a stay away at all, but I just, again, when all I see is volatility, I'd like to see, and the space that has separated, you got to realize when I break down things in the halftime report and when I track things in general for either tackle trading, our students, our community, myself, whatever it is, I'm a top-down analyst. I put a lot of emphasis on index sectors, industries, individual components. And I like multiple time frames aligning. I like sectors that are easy. I like to go where it's easy. And where it's
Yeah.
easy is when you have a space moving
Everybody's
together.
cooking on all cylinders.
Yeah. And right now the semiconductors simply are not cooking together. What can align that? A Taiwan Semiconductor earnings report at the first of earnings season. Catalysts through earnings can align this back in line. And at that point, I do think we have a better understanding of where the semiconductors want to go in the short term. Because for me, I do not question where the semiconductors want to go in the long term.
No.
That is never part of this conversation. It's all about short-term strategic thinking of how to navigate the challenging conditions of these really important conversations.
Yep, absolutely. Love it. Now, did you have one more?
I don't know. I just got done with that soapbox. So
that was a good soapbox. Yeah. I mean, and it was a good exercise to go through because it is helpful when you kind of look at the things that make up a space. Because when everything's cooking, it is easier, and easier is better, right? So,
well, Dina, we thank you for your question because I ran out of things to talk about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, listen, I'm always happy to talk about charts
on that.
and trading. Yeah, I know. I was going to say it's a bold statement.
That was not a truthful statement, Dina. No. We could have figured something out, but no, I did appreciate the question because it's been on my mind as well. And if it's on your mind, Dina, it's on my mind. It's probably on the minds of others out there. So yeah. I appreciate you bringing up the conversation so we could talk about it.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate that, Dina. Well, Maddie, it's always fun hanging out on a Wednesday with you and with the team, and appreciate you having me. Team, you guys are the best. Love you, appreciate you. And if you ever need anything from me, you can find me over in Discord. I'm not a hard character to find. I'm usually lurking not too far away. And if you haven't guessed by now, I like talking about this stuff. So if you need me or just want to come joke around with the Delta Dogs in the Step channel, come on over and join us. And if you're not a member of Team Tackle yet, never a better time than today to head over to tackletrading.com. Sign up for a free 15-day trial. Got nothing to lose, right? You can't beat free. Get to be part of the greatest trading community out there. Take part in our different shows, our traders lounges, get access to our weekend reports, all sorts of fun stuff. Come on over and give us a try. I think you'll find it's a good home. And if not, well, no harm, no foul. With that said, Maddie, love you, Team Tackle. I'll let you take us out of here, my man.
Yeah, thanks for that shout out on Team Tackle. If you are looking for a awesome trading community that will not only teach you how to navigate the financial world, teach you how to make decisions for yourself so that you can control your financial future, but also help you with the application side of it as well, you're going to love Tackle Trading. So why don't you come over and join us at Tackle Trading? You get a free 15-day free trial and test out all the goodies that the pro members enjoy. With that said, the only thing I would say, Frankie, is definitely let's throw our tackle support behind Coach Mark, and let's make sure that we give him a view on the Decoding
100%.
Buffett series, and make sure to like and share to help out with that Google algorithm as well. Always appreciate that. I'll tell you, the video 2 is on Charlie Munger, his influence, his impact on Warren Buffett. I hope you guys truly enjoy it. I know both Mark and myself are truly enjoying putting this video series together and bringing a little bit of the Buffett mentality to our communities at Tackle Trading. So hopefully you enjoyed that one as well. And if you are a power user in Discord, you can enjoy the next couple videos, because I always put those into Discord in the Tackle 25 thread in our Discord channel. I always put those when I get them done, but they will be released on YouTube once a week, every Wednesday. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that second video.
Love it. Love it. Well, you're the best, Team Tackle. We will see you. I'll see you on Friday. We'll be back same time, same channel for the halftime report tomorrow.